What is going on, everyone? Happy Friday morning. Feels like a long week this week, even though it's a short week, especially for our American audience. But welcome in. Friday morning, 11 a.m., Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Lots to dive into. It's a busy Friday morning. We saw Cresco Labs. They basically announced their latest earnings. So we're going to quickly recap those along with Canopy Growth. There is some news involving Ayr Wellness this morning and a delay to their earnings. We're going to get some more feedback on why that was and what this means. Starting to see this more and more with the overall industry, especially as you factor in Cresco, who delayed a little bit too, and what this might mean. And then off the top, we're going to have the CEO of Tilt Holdings, Tim Conder, onto the podcast the first time. He had a recent trip to China, so I thought this would be an interesting angle. And we talk about these tariffs and what this could mean for a lot of vape products in the cannabis industry. So he was on the ground. We want to get an idea as to what he heard. Is there panic involved? And we're starting to see some people move their supply chain to Indonesia. So what does that mean for cannabis companies and their bottom line? So with that, let's welcome an AV here on a Friday morning. Good to see you. And happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
It's a busy morning, isn't it?
It was a busy morning. I mean, it was two press releases that weren't the most positive. Obviously, we can break those down later in the podcast, but Canopy's earnings came out. Cresco, like you had alluded to, Ayr. I mean, I think some people have seen this coming for a while regarding Ayr. I mean, obviously, I've got a couple of people that I'm friends with over at Ayr. I mean, I think Rob's a great guy and a bunch of the guys on the management team. I said the public equity was in jeopardy a couple of months ago. Kind of talked people off the name. That came to fruition this morning with this restructuring the Moelis is being hired for. Cease trade orders coming down the pipe. They're delaying earnings. They have a bunch of good assets. I mean, they're going to restructure the company and I guess come to terms with their lenders. As we've talked about with a lot of institutional guys that have come on the podcast, these lenders don't really want these assets for the most part. They want the companies to still operating and weather the storm and come to something, let's say, light at the end of the tunnel. So I don't really think it's the last we've seen of Ayr, but I think the company is going to fundamentally change, especially from a capital formation perspective and just a footprint standpoint.
I know.
Moving forward, and we're going to find out this here shortly in probably the next 30 days.
Yeah. And I realize people are investing in the company. This is all business. I won't lie. There's a personal aspect to it too, because you and I, when we get to all these conferences and meet a lot of these people from various companies, I can say the people at Ayr, great people. Wish them all the best, obviously, moving forward. But it's never a great time to get announcements like this. But onwards and upwards,
No.
You know what I mean? It's just
no. And I mean, it is. But I mean, there's two kinds of people in the cannabis industry. There's ones that are very thin-skinned that can't really take honest commentary about their company. That'll then just completely cut off communication with you. And then there's others that can respect someone's opinion that's objectively looking at their company, whether it's good or it's bad. And they understand that that's just part of the business that we're in. We're not here to be cheerleaders. We're here to objectively look at businesses and look at the ins and outs of that business and comment on them. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of mutual respect between the management teams and us.
That's the next level as to what we're trying to build out here. And I think people are starting to see that, where it's, you need to have an objective approach. And some people, as I said, within the industry do good things. And some people, it's just like, if there's questions that are being asked and there's numbers that are being approached, regardless of who you are and what market you're in, transparency is key in a lot of things right now. So, oh boys, here we go. Wink, wink. But
no, it's funny. The Tilray needs thick Vic to come back. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that comment in a while. Vic Neufeld is one of the goats of this industry. No one is ever going to forget about his tenure in the cannabis space with Afria.
Maybe we should have a Vic Neufeld day and just wear our gold chain.
I would love to. I would love to have him on to talk about his heyday in the cannabis industry.
I'll reach out to him afterwards. He's been zero dark 30 for a number of years, rightfully so. But anyways, good old Vic Neufeld. Man, that feels like just when you think time flies, that feels like a long time ago when you bring up a name like that. But listen, today's podcast, a lot to cover. As I said, we'll quickly recap afterwards. Cresco, obviously Ayr and Canopy's latest numbers. But I thought this was an interesting story. The Tilt Holdings team reached out to me and mentioned that their CEO just had a recent trip to China to talk all about these tariffs. And yes, we hear it on the news with Trump every single day. and what this is meaning and deals being put in place with various countries. But there's still that standoff between the US and China. As it stands right now, what are the percentage of tariffs? I know it was 145%. It was rumored a couple of weeks ago, but what's it at right now?
So I think the new tariffs are 30%. We had existing tariffs, I think that were 20%. So all in somewhere around 50. I know when we were talking to Tim yesterday, it was somewhere between 45 and 50% all in. I think it's probably better to get his perspective on the actual numbers, as he was just there and fully involved in doing the math.
Yeah. Ed Blunt, didn't Shad do a podcast, just do a podcast talking about how great GTI is? Look, I compared the two. Just so everybody's here, okay? We want to expand our audience. So the people that listen to the live stream that are on Twitter, you guys follow the cannabis space inside and out and know it very, very closely. But I also have a strategy where I'm trying to expand. There are tons of people out there that know nothing about this industry. And when I create content based off of that, it's about luring in new audiences and expanding and growing. So understand the balance between the two. So I just wanted to be transparent with you because I know a lot of you, I get it. You guys understand it inside and out. And a lot of this content could be stuff that you already know. But talk to a person that doesn't follow the space. Do you think they have any idea what safe banking is? Any idea that,
but I don't understand. I don't understand the correlation between anything we just said and you saying GTI is a great company. I mean, GTI is a great company. Yes. They make money. Yes. They've got a large footprint. There's been strategically positioning that company from a capital allocation standpoint with Agrify to weather the storm, take complete, not control, but it could take complete advantage of the hemp opportunity. And I mean, he's building something that's built to last.
Yes.
Him and Anthony have financially engineered a business that makes money in this space on a per share basis, quarter in and quarter out.
Yes.
So, I mean, to say, if you want to call one company in this space great, it would be GTI.
Yes. I bring this up because, yes, there's a few comments that were made on Twitter this week. And I get it. But, at the same time, too, what I love having with this platform is explaining yourself a little bit more so people understand the approach and everything. So I'm happy to share that we gained almost 6,000 new subs over the past 28 days, in addition to the 1 million+ views. And we're just about to hit that 50,000 mark. And I'm proud to announce that when we hit that 50,000 mark, we're going to do a contest giveaway. So we're strategizing with the team. I don't know how big the prize is going to be, but I think it's only smart that we do something that, signals that we are growing. We've hit a big milestone, and it's only good that we give some sort of giveaway to a lot of our viewers. But anyway, I hope that makes sense and understand basically the approach here at TDR. But in the meantime, as I said off the top, let's talk about these tariffs. And with that, let's welcome in the CEO of Tilt Holdings, Tim Conder, as we're ranting here this morning. Good to see you. How are things?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate being on.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having the time. And first off, you'd had a trip to China. What was that like? And outside of cannabis, did you have many conversations with various business people in China that how they're viewing the US right now? And what was the big takeaway that you found and what you learned?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a timely question. And the trip was in large part to kind of address sort of the issues with international commerce that we're facing right now in the US and China especially. And I would say the sentiment there is a little from business folks is confusion and action, right? Not a lot of uncertainty a lot of uncertainty, but aggressive action to ensure that, their customer base, which is primarily, I think 60% or greater in the US, is they're still able to take care of.
So you had said, as we were talking to you before we were going to do this interview here today, that right now U.S. companies are staring down, is it tariffs between 40 and 55%? Is that correct?
For goods that we import from China, yes. Things without a battery are 40.5%. Things with a battery are 55%.
So from your conversations, how quickly are these increased costs hitting operators?
I mean, operators on the supply chain side immediately, right? What we've been able to do, and I think a large number of our competitors have been able to do to this point is not pass that cost along to customers. I'm hearing that that's starting to happen, but I can only speak for us at this point. We've, along with our suppliers, have shouldered that burden, but that can't continue in perpetuity. When you talk about 55%, right, with companies that have gross margins of 20 to 37%,
yeah,
you essentially pay to be a provider.
Yeah.
Well, one thing we've seen in the broad market where companies talking about pull forward demand with their vendors coming through and purchasing a ton of product up front to circumvent tariffs. Have you seen that have you seen that demand from any of your client or
as you
partners,
guys know? As you guys know, I mean, the cannabis industry is unique in that very few companies, with certain exceptions, have any cash on their balance sheet to be able to pull forward sort of product demand so they can increase their domestic inventory or domestic supply. And so, no, we have not seen that. With limited exceptions. Most companies are, the uncertainty is very, very real. It's probably the most important word that we use every day related to these increases. And that uncertainty and the lack of liquid assets is causing people to kind of sit on their hands and see what happens.
And then in terms of Jupiter's supply chain, I mean, Jupiter's a household name within the vape and component space in the US, been around for years now. How much of that supply chain is levered to China as it currently exists?
It was 100%, but we took some aggressive action during the first Trump administration to address what at that point became a 25% tariff increase. So with our primary supplier, we were already in the process of shifting certain manufacturing to Indonesia. And at this point, all of our cartridges are produced in Indonesia and will be operational with all of our all-in-one devices in the next 3 months.
So is that the trend that we're going to start to see more in the industry, that people will start to shift their supply chain to Indonesia? Because from what I see, there's no end in sight as to what's going to happen in China, right?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there is, at least from the sort of, political fodder, but yes, absolutely. Indonesia, other parts of Southeast Asia, I believe iSpire has a spot in Malaysia.
They do.
So yeah, but definitely an enormous shift. But it's interesting in that, I mean, this is 30 years of infrastructure that's been built in China since globalization started in the 90s. And so, I mean, I can't understate how wild it is to have to rebuild that infrastructure elsewhere, even in some sort of limited percentage, right? It's enormous shift and a very, very fast one.
Do you see that sticking and happening and like staying in place permanently? Because that's 30 years of infrastructure. Like what's the domino effect? Like what I see right now, like, are there pros of actually working your supply chain in Indonesia? Is there a lot of cons involved in that, knowing that you have to pick up and move?
I mean, the pros are definitely tariff related, right? The cons are things like the cost of input materials, the cost of shipping, because you don't just move a factory, and have that part of the infrastructure. There's an entire supply chain related to that infrastructure that's required. And the largest part of that is shipping and logistics.
Right, of course.
As far as the supply chains go, I mean, I know you had the release with Curaleaf, I think a couple of weeks back, about the approved medical device in the EU. Is that supply chain unique, and manufacturing, is that unique to the EU, or is that also being manufactured in Indonesia currently?
Those products are being manufactured in both China and Indonesia.
Okay.
There's nothing entirely unique about the supply chain itself. There is something unique in sort of in the validation of the product and how that product is manufactured, but it's specific to the manufacturer and the party responsible for the technology, which is Jupiter in this case. But they're manufactured in the same factory.
And then as it relates to manufacturing on a go-forward basis, obviously as part of the Trump administration's agenda, they've been, let's say, encouraging companies to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Do you foresee that as being a possibility with the business that you're in the components and battery business moving forward, or it's just not feasible to bring those factories and reshore the manufacturing here domestically?
Not in the near term, right? I mean, when we talk about manufacturing vape hardware and vape, ancillary hardware for the cannabis industry or even the nicotine space, it's, manufacturers are essentially assemblers, right? Sourcing products from dozens of sub-tier suppliers. And so while the assemblers may be able to shift pretty quickly, like we've sort of demonstrated with this move to Indonesia, the sub-tier supply chain is the long pole in the tent on that. And, they're not as well capitalized as, certain manufacturers, like our primary manufacturer, Smore and C-Cell, to be able to make those transitions quickly.
Mhm.
And to recreate an entire sub-tier supply chain in the US would take years.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we look at safety stock, we're hearing operators are down from 90 days to 30 days of inventory. Is that correct?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's operator contingent for sure, but we've absolutely seen a reduction in what we would sort of call domestic safety stock at, brands and operators locations, mostly because, like I was talking about at the beginning, people are just waiting to see what happens, right? They're
Mhm.
hoping it gets better and not worse. And they're seeing some indication that that will be the case, right? With some of these pauses and the reciprocal tariffs. And so as they're sort of waiting to see how things unfold, they are dramatically reducing their domestic safety stock in order to be able to, wait some period of time.
Risky, but it's got to be done right now. So if you called, like, what's the timeline like if you were like, make the order into China and it getting to the US? Like, how long does that take right now?
Depends. It's definitely product dependent. It can be anywhere from 2 to 16 weeks.
Okay.
It's
So
pretty broad range, right? Like,
That's a broad range.
yeah.
and it depends on the level of customization, new product launches, et cetera. I mean, as you guys know, the vape hardware space is rapidly evolving. Where it was 100% cartridges a few years ago, it's now 30% plus all-in-one, and moving very quickly.
Right.
In the increased all-in-one category.
Tim, that almost sounds like when your Wi-Fi goes down and there you call up the company to come by and they'll be there anywhere between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. Like, that's kind of all over the place.
Absolutely, man. It's totally product contingent. And, the more highly customized, the longer the product can take to be manufactured. And so it's not happening overnight, right? Even if you can manufacture a product in 2 weeks, still takes 2 weeks to get into the US at this point.
Yeah.
One very, immediate thing that we saw, and I think everybody is experiencing, is slowdowns in entry into the US, right? Because of the increased level of scrutiny at the border or at ports of entry. And so that's, inspections, custom holds, even custom seizures have increased dramatically.
Wow. Well, it doesn't
In
surprise
terms
me.
in terms of tariffs, is there a certain range to where it's tolerable, to where you don't have to offset that cost to the consumer? And is there a certain level to where it's just, all right, this is no longer tolerable within our business model, and now prices are going to need to go up, that are consumer facing?
I mean, it's a good question. I think what we're experiencing in conversations with our brand partners is like nothing is tolerable, right?
Okay.
Everything is a push to bring product, COGS expenses down. And so, like, as we're rapidly trying to decrease price, like, this slows that down. But it's really, there's not much that is tolerable from the consumer, because then a product that is a little harder to access through regulated means just means more attrition to hemp and unregulated spaces.
Yeah.
Tim, you asked China, like, are you guys okay? That sort of thing. What is your belief as to what's going on in the US right now with a lot of this tariff language that Donald Trump has implemented since entering into office? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? You hear mixed signals as to how this free trade agreement, across the world, prior to Donald Trump stepping into office, and how he's kind of reshaped that completely. But look, this has a short-term effect on the cannabis industry right now. But when you look at this from a broad perspective, like, where is this going to go and what kind of impact could it have on the overall space if this continues down this road?
Yeah, I mean, my personal perspective is that in the near term, it's bad, right? I think there's absolutely a way to use tariffs as a tool to achieve certain goals, right? Related to domestic manufacturing. I think we saw a lot of that in the CHIPS Act. And, it doesn't get talked about a lot, but started to return, certain jobs, manufacturing, et cetera, to the US. And I think there's a way for tariffs to be leveraged appropriately. The sort of broad application of tariffs across, all supply chains, it just has it's such an immediate negative impact to businesses and consumers here in the US, right? And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're dealing with. There's zero positive move as it relates to onshoring manufacturing. So if that's the intended outcome, then it's not having that, it's not achieving that. And so, we don't believe that sort of that action is going to help anybody, especially in cannabis, where, man, people are struggling, right? Like the industry is at an inflection point, and this just makes a business that's extremely hard, the hardest in the world, that much harder.
Yeah.
Do you see companies reallocating resources to form factors outside of vape until something to this magnitude subsides in terms of tariffs?
Anecdotally, absolutely. We're hearing sort of exploration, product development on pre-roll and flower as a solve for any potential increases in hardware costs.
The problem is the damn category is so big. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people you see those all-in-one vapes, and the vapes are a huge category.
Yeah,
and growing, right? Especially for Gen Z. So
yeah,
they want those products.
Yeah.
So what's the takeaway here before we let you run? But what is the big takeaway from your trip to China? And I don't want to sound all doom and gloom. Like, we are adapting and we need to inform people. But at the end of the day, what's the takeaway that people should understand here?
Big takeaway is China, companies in China want to work with us. They have been very important partners of ours for a long time, and they continue to act like partners, right? They are absorbing the increased costs. And, the other takeaway is, as are providers like Jupiter, right? I mean, we believe in the long-term viability of the cannabis industry. We really believe in the long-term success of our partners and the brands that we are lucky to support. And so between providers like Jupiter and manufacturers like, our primary supplier, Smore and C-Cell in China, we're doing everything possible to alleviate the near-term impacts to brands and ultimately to the consumer, and we'll continue to.
What's the infrastructure look like in Indonesia? You talked about 30 years of infrastructure in China, but you got to pivot in real time. So what does that look like?
The manufacturing epicenter in China is an area called Shenzhen. I think 12 or 14 million people live there. 30 years ago, it was a fishing village of 14,000.
Yeah.
I would say in Indonesia, where we're located, there's one hotel, right? So that's what we're talking about. Like, the infrastructure differences are dramatic.
So this is important. Outside of all this stuff, what'd you think of Shanghai?
Beautiful city, man.
Yeah.
I've heard it's amazing.
Never been. How's the food there? I'm sure it's amazing.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I've heard China's awesome.
It's so good, man. I mean, it's so good. And we had some Japanese teppanyaki that was like out of this world.
Ooh, that sounds tasty.
I mean, good people, right? Like,
I bet.
In a lot of ways, right, they're portrayed as sort of this like sort of dark enterprise over there, but it's really family people trying to make a go of it in most cases, right, that have invested a lot, that have put a lot of their own personal themselves on the line to make things go, and a lot of correlation to sort of growing businesses in the US.
I've heard from many people outside of the CCP, there's a lot to like in China, especially the people, the food, the culture, the infrastructure. It's not what you hear and see in the media.
No, not at all.
Whatsoever.
I think the biggest misconception is trying to find all these manufacturing jobs. Can it survive in the US, especially for this industry? But I think the biggest misconception out there is that people actually think, at least this is what a lot of political leaders would try selling you on, like, you're not going to have people with these manufacturing jobs once it's up and running. This is where automation comes into play, which we obviously want to be a global leader pertaining to it. But do you think that happens or fast tracks in the US if it stays the status quo in China for a long extended period of time?
I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's interesting. You talk about automation, right? I mean, at this point, cartridges, which are to a certain degree an evergreen product in the vape space, you walk onto a manufacturing floor that's manufacturing cartridges, there's like 4 people, there, and they're just making sure that the automated equipment is running properly and doing quality checks. But it's definitely a far cry from sort of the hundreds of people on an assembly line that you saw even 10 years ago, right?
So don't believe all those TikTok videos that you see.
It still exists, right? Like
Yeah.
all-in-ones are still in a lot of ways manually assembled products, but that's good. That will obviously change as well.
All right, sir. Well, I appreciate it. I thought it was an interesting angle just to hear what your recent experience was in China, how they're viewing the U.S., and more importantly, what we discussed, which is the cannabis space. But the big takeaway here is they want to work with us. But in the meantime, until things that are out of your control, it's the shifting to Indonesia right now, which we'll watch this closely because if this is the case and a lot of people that are in the supply chain with vapes, over these next 2 quarters, something that we need to be mindful for as we progress here in 2025. But appreciate obviously the feedback.
Yep. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Right. Thanks, Tim.
Let's keep in touch.
Take care.
Bye.
Never been there, but I have a feeling that I've just heard people there are just so nice. And yeah,
I've heard nothing but good things.
I know, right?
Literally nothing but good things. You don't believe everything that the media spews out there.
No, man, oh man, interesting times right now, right? It's just when you think that it's like whack-a-mole, just when you think you got something covered off, a new issue comes up.
It's never ending,
isn't it? All right. That wraps up segment number 1, which is our featured interview here on a Friday. Let's keep things rolling along. Let's go now into some earnings breakdown. Let's first touch on what we're going to bring up first. Cresco Labs. Let me bring up some of these highlight numbers. They report 166 million in Q1. That's down from 184 million from last year. What were some other things that I've noticed here? They were down in revenue, declined 10%. When I look at net loss, Q1 2024 net loss 2.06 million, 2025 15.23 million, and EBITDA dropped. Adjusted EBITDA 53.16 million in Q1 2024, 36.23 million. Let's not sugarcoat this. This is a eye opener. You surprised by some of these numbers?
Very much so, considering Cresco is known for operational efficiency. I mean, Charlie's a good friend of the show. Charlie's the CEO in this space that I respect greatly. I mean, he's retained the #1 market share in a lot of his markets. If he's still retaining that #1 market share, which I'm pretty sure he is, I mean, this signals some rough times for the cannabis sector. Their metrics were down all across the board. SG&A was up, gross margin was down, revenue was down, free cash flow was down, adjusted EBITDA was down. This is not a good quarter for them.
No.
And Cresco is one of the companies that I've repeatedly said from an operational perspective and just from an overall health standpoint are one of the better companies in the space. So no, I mean, I'm going to wait to pass judgment until I'm sure we'll have Charlie on the show sometime in the next 2 weeks. Either that or we'll see him at Benzinga. They have their conference call Monday morning. I'm going to listen to the commentary and see what's going on, but there's trouble going on in their markets. Is this something that they could weather? Yeah. Is it something that might be transitory? Not sure. Something's going on. Their numbers are down, revenue's down, and the metrics are not pointing to in a good direction. Like I said, let's wait to pass judgment until we get commentary from the actual management team and really some firsthand accord as to what's going on with the business. But at face value, no, this quarter was not very good whatsoever.
Mitch, you say people in Illinois are driving to Michigan, I guess the northern part, but like the middle to southern part of Illinois, that's a heck of a hike to go to Michigan. Maybe you know something that I don't. Feel free to comment off of that, but I can understand the rationale behind it.
But you get people that are driving from Illinois to Michigan and then they're buying in bulk and then they're selling in Illinois illicitly.
It's wild.
Yeah.
I sometimes just shake my head at the infrastructure that's in the U.S. It's just businesses can't cross state lines, but how easy it for the consumer just to buy something in Michigan and drive across state lines. It's like, it's beyond easy, I
mean, I'm sure hemp is also a factor. I hate to bring that up, but it has to be.
Jake,
I haven't been really hawking the OMMU numbers, but I'd be curious to see what their market share has done in the last 6 months in Florida, as far as continuation of that trend that they were trending up in terms of growth and milligrams sold in their dispensaries in Florida. Like I said, I'm sure Charlie will have an in-depth commentary on this, and I'm sure analysts are going to be asking questions as to the deterioration in the numbers. So I think we should wait to truly pass judgment until we hear the conference call.
Good point.
But also, this is not isolated. Everyone's numbers were down this Q1. It's just a function of how down were they year over year and quarter over quarter.
100%.
So I mean, this isn't something that is unique to Cresco. I would have been surprised if their numbers were up proportionally to the decay in them this quarter.
Well, as we've said in the past, with Frank Colombo on, like I asked him a couple of weeks, or actually probably a month or so ago, status quo to me in his latest earnings report looked like it was going to be a win, and that definitely would be a win. But
no one had status quo.
I know.
No one.
That's the reality.
I think the only company that from a status quo perspective, year over year had the same revenue number was TrueLeaf.
Okay.
Because they did, but also keep in mind that I think they also expanded their dispensaries by 10%.
Which is
other operators were down in the negative in terms of top line growth, and they expanded their retail footprints throughout the year as well. So that just goes to show you that despite that metric, I mean, TrueLeaf is quote unquote performing to not have true top line decay, yet they expanded retail, yet others are seeing double digit decay in top line, and they expanded their retail as well.
Yeah, which is why I'll bring this next topic up. PA, it can't come some of the news fast enough. We need new markets to go online. But I was speaking to Trent from Juicy this week. We're going to have him on next week. We'll get an update from Michael. Michael's going to top line. Basically, there's some big news that's supposed to come down from the Senate next week. So he'll tee it up on Monday on the live stream. And then some of that, results or feedback that we get out of the Senate will occur towards the middle part of next week, which is why we'll have a second part, but that'll be with Trent to basically outline and update what we need to know about the PA market. But that is the solution here. If you want to obviously grow your bottom line, you need more markets to go online. And again, we see the ramifications, even though it wasn't going to take place until May. Would have been nice, obviously, to have Florida pass in November and get that online, but whatever, that's all said and done.
Yeah.
One thing I will take away, though, out of a lot of people we speak to, Charlie Bacto, one of the most respected CEOs in the industry. So rest assured, we'll talk to him more. We'll elaborate more on the numbers. But holy cow, Mitch, some of the numbers that you're outlining. Michigan prices are $5 a gram for wax. It's $70 in Illinois after taxes. Like, that's wild. Ounces are $5.
$5 a gram for, I mean, I would be seriously questioning the quality of what you're getting for $5 per gram, but anecdotally, I haven't tried it.
Well, we've talked about it, and it seems to be there is quite the entourage of people in that Michigan market that are very close knit that have brought down the price per gram way down, as we learned when we were at MJ Biz. Oh, by the way, before we get into our next topics, the Edmonton Oilers spanked the Stars last night. Here we go. Stanley Cup rematch. That'll be interesting. That will be an interesting matchup. The only thing I don't
Panthers in 6.
The only thing I don't like is Zach Hyman's out. I want both teams healthy, and I'm sure you don't give a shit.
I don't give a shit. I'm glad he's out. I was hoping he was having season-ending surgery as soon as I saw that injury. He's damn good.
81 goals the last 2 seasons. That's pretty impressive.
I mean, Connor McDavid also looks like a man possessed. So I don't want any piece of that man. I think we got to beat him down. We just got to get physical and just beat him down, or we're not going to beat that team.
Corey Perry, good point. He's won a cup with Anaheim way back in 2007, but man, what's it been? It's been Montreal, Tampa, Dallas, and Edmonton, if I'm correct. 4 times to the Stanley Cup over the last 5 years or so, and he's lost every time. So maybe he gets a win. But anyways, let's move on, get back to our show here. Ayr on Fire, as it's titled, based off of this announcement this morning. And I know we touched on it right off the top, but how do I want to address this and bring this up? So for
not good.
Yeah.
Stock's down 50%. There's a cease trade order that's on its way. They've hired Moelis & Company to advise them on restructuring and a strategic review of the business. I would expect for them to sell that Virginia license for cash. It's worth a decent amount if you want to market it with what the Cannabis sold their Virginia asset for. Granted, that was an actual operating asset versus the license. But there's some value there. Their Florida operation, I know they had some hiccups in Q1 and Q4 of last year with their flower. It's not looking good for them right now operationally. Like I said, there may be light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know what that looks like, especially if you want to talk about the inherent value of their public equity. They've got a lot of debt. The seniority on that cap stack is going to get taken care of, and we'll see
So
what
walk
happens.
us through what happens in a situation like that. They have all this debt, they can't meet up, there's restructuring involved. How does this play out?
I have no idea how it plays out. If I knew, it'd be something. But they have a tremendous amount of debt. They're going to have to restructure it. It's going to the public equity holders could get wiped out. Not saying they are going to get wiped out. It all matters how they restructure and what happens. Those debt holders are probably going to get very juicy warrant coverage, and it's going to be favorable the terms are going to be favored towards them. But like I said, those debt holders don't want to operate the asset.
Yeah.
They could also get taken private. They've got a $13 million market cap right now.
13.
So it goes to tell you, and the top line on the business is, I think, somewhere between 400 and 500 million. If I'm not mistaken.
Did you say 13 million?
I said 13 million.
Wow. That's wild.
I'm sorry, 12. I was looking at the wrong ticker. So yeah, 12. We'll see what happens.
This is less about paperwork and more about survival, right?
Oh, this is very much about paperwork.
Oh, well, I'm saying survival. Like, the company is more or less, they've got to make these decisions because
they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. There's some very difficult decisions that are going to be made. I don't know if they're going to go into receivership. I know Moelis was hired to, I think, restructure and sell the assets of Ianthus as well as MedMen, if I'm not mistaken. And Moelis was hired in this situation for them. So I don't know what happens with Ayr. I don't have enough insight into the actual business. But like I said, Rob's a good friend. I like a lot of the people that are at Ayr. I was very bullish on Ayr pre-Amendment 3.
I know.
I said a couple months ago, guys, the public equity is probably worthless in this scenario. There's no point in holding it. That was a while ago as far as price goes as well. So obviously it's not financial advice, but if you're still holding Ayr, don't know what to tell you. You're in it for the long haul, or it's going to be a total zero.
Yeah.
But no, I don't want to see them fail. Absolutely not. I mean, that would be brutal.
Gary, drinks on you. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate the donation of $19.99. That's awesome. Thank you, sir. Here's a stat that'll grab your attention. I know we talked about this in the past when you and I were having lunch the one day in Vegas and talking about, is this a good entry point at some of the share prices back in 2021? Ayr Wellness peaked at approximately 1.72 billion US with a share price of $29 when it came to their overall market cap. Wild as to how much has changed, but good guys over there. So hoping the best on what can transpire out of that.
What happens when an industry turns from growth to life support?
Yeah. Last thing I want to bring up, Canopy. They outlined their latest earnings as well. A quick reminder, Luc Maggio is going to be on Monday with us at 4:00. And, when I look at some of these numbers, I will say that, look, he's going to pull the curtain back. And I know that his whole focus is based on operations. And I think in the past, some of the feedback from the first interview we got is that there wasn't a lot of different, I should say, verticals that were speaking to each other. So it's all about constant communication. But then at the same time, too, scaling back and focusing on what's working. And I'm curious to see what he's got to share, what he will share, because, he's indicated us in the past that I'm going to pull back the curtain, not hold anything back, and right the ship here. But, let's find out what this medical market and adult use market in Canada is going to represent and get more of a vision. In all fairness, this wasn't the first full quarter under his watch because he was brought in, in January? So we'll ask those questions, but clearly the next quarter is really going to be telling because it's under his watch. But I would think over the last 3-4 months, there's been a lot of change under his vision. So let's find out on Monday. based on some of these numbers and some of these changes that they have made internally from an operational standpoint. What's happened? What takes place? What does that transpire into? And more importantly, for a lot of the investors in the company, what can they anticipate next? So that'll be highlighted on Monday at 4 o'clock. 40 minutes in. Anybody want to ask anything? What do you just want
fire
to
up the Dan Patrick video?
Oh, let's go. Arns, can you bring that up?
Wanting to protect children, but you have grown adults who are using these products too. Is there a way to do this where grown adults could still have access to these products?
We don't want adults having this either. What are you, crazy? You want to go home and eat a bag of this tonight? See if you're here tomorrow? This is what we focus on, kids, because that's where they built the shops. But adults are buying this stuff too. Make no mistake. We want to protect the 20 and the 30 and the 40 and the 50-year-olds too. We don't want anybody buying anything off the shelf that could kill them or ruin their mental state for the rest of their lives. The young man who was 22 who stepped in front of a train after he ate some of this junk, he wasn't a kid. He was an adult. That's crazy talk. That's the kind of talk, the reason why we're here. Media that would say something as stupid as that.
Fuck. Are you kidding me? I don't even know what to say in these situations.
So a couple things. It just goes to show you how uneducated he is in terms of what is a cannabinoid, what is hemp, what the teacup program does within the state of Texas that he endorses. That product that he just held up, which is Hometown Heroes, I think 20 milligram THC cereal bites, is Delta 9 naturally derived THC. That is the exact same molecule that he's endorsing to get dispensed to patients in Texas via the teacup program. So he's literally holding something up that says, this will kill you. This will curtail your mental capacity for the rest of your life, but you're allowed to buy it. And I have no problem with you consuming it as long as it's done under the Texas medical program. That man is dangerous. That man has no idea what he's talking about. And he has absolutely no business regulating or even being involved in the conversation as it relates to cannabinoids. There's certain things that I want to be banned within the industry: synthetics, HHC, THCP. SB3 would effectively do that, but it would also nuke all of the other products in the sector. If SB3 getting vetoed by Governor Abbott means a middle finger to that guy, then so be it, and veto the damn thing. Because the way that they're going about it is so just ass backwards and reefer madness and uneducated, and they truly have no idea what they're talking about. Because the molecule that he said the molecule he had in that bag, millions of patients nationwide rely on from a medical perspective. The HHS has admitted that the molecules in that bag that he said would kill you have accepted medical use. He's dangerous and he has no idea what he's talking about.
You know what, Gretchen? That's a very good point, because no one in the media industry understands it where they couldn't push back. Yeah, I agree. But he knows exactly what he's doing. Of course he does.
And also for him to say that they want to protect adults, like they don't want like, what is Texas, a nanny state? Texas prides itself on being some freedom state within the union and within the United States. Who is he to tell adults what to use or what to consume, especially, like I said, where it's accepted countrywide globally by millions and millions of people ingest Delta 9 THC. And you know what? No one's died to date using it. If you ate that entire bag, you might want to go to the hospital and you might feel very ill, but you're not going to die.
Brian DeBrasco,
impossible.
Good to see you on a Friday morning. Patrick's deputy counsel graduated with a lobbyist for a new company called Blissful Canna Co., who is supporting SB3. Coincidence or corruption? Good to know.
It doesn't matter, because he's a walking contradiction. He literally said, this is going to kill you, but this is approved, and it's the same molecule, which goes back to the conversation we had with Thomas on Wednesday and several other people on this podcast. We need overarching federal regulation for the molecule that is THC. Forget hemp, forget cannabis. There needs to be overarching regulation in this country as it relates to THC, because whether it comes from hemp or whether it comes from state regulated cannabis, it's the exact same thing.
Yeah. Logan Miller, yeah, you have this point where there's a lot of uneducated people ruling on cannabis. There's also a lot of people that aren't uneducated. They know exactly what's going on. But the number one thing I see, and it's just a generational thing that we talk about, it's boomers. To see a man of his age basically being so opinionated towards something, it just comes a point where you need change. And holy cow, it's just, we're still reaping the consequences of the 1980s version of the Just Say No era. Brian, you write, because Blissful Canico will have a TC teacup license in 6 months. Okay. Can we please?
You know what they need to do? If SB3 gets passed,
yeah,
and they ban hemp, they need to take that clip of Dan Patrick saying that this will kill you, actually relay to people that is Delta 9 THC, and it's the same thing that the state of Texas stands by to dispense to its citizens. So they're dispensing something that they've acknowledged will kill you.
Okay, here's an idea for everybody out there. If we charge, let's say, some content, which we're going to do on a membership wall, I mean, let's say we charge $5-6 a month. We use all that money and we give that to Gretchen. And Gretchen is now the media space. We hire her and she goes around the country and basically gives those types of pushbacks. I think it's a great business opportunity. So if we're a community, we want some, results. I can't think of a better reporter than Gretchen asking real good questions, because imagine Gretchen in that room yesterday with Dan Patrick after what he said. That's the kind of education that we need in a pushback. Let us know your thoughts. If we do, let's get this going. What else can we talk about here today? Is that pretty much a wrap?
That's pretty much a wrap.
Yeah. What a week. What a week. By the way, Gretchen, hello. It's been a couple weeks since I've seen or heard from you. Christopher Brady, it's been a while, but good to have you back. Great meow. And I love the people that are calling me Chad at the beginning. It's Shad. Any other comments? Michael D. Man, oh man, what a turnaround story. Michael D. from VFF keeps buying stock. Any chances to have him on soon? Yes, we've reached out to his team, Chad. I think the big thing is they just want to close this deal, make sure everything's all buttoned up, but we'll keep you posted. We are going to be at Benzenga in a week and a half. He won't be there. He's accepting an award, I think, in New York that night or the following night, but some of his team members are going to be there. And all I can tell you is some of the people that he has hired, the team that he's assembled, are some of the brightest people that you'll come across in the industry. So props to Michael and his team. It's a calculated effort by that overall team, but good to see him continue to buy stock, and really how this company has gone out and redefined themselves the last 30 days. Don't you think, Anthony?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure I publicly disclosed I bought the stock on the spin out. I continue to buy the stock. They got their anchor removed from around their neck, which was that vegetable business. They're now a pure play cannabis company. They're going to have a fresh capital infusion of $40 million to play with. It's a great company
I know.
that's capitalizing on a global cannabis opportunity. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see them have exposure to the United States sooner rather than later. And Michael knows how to operate and grow flower.
He knows how to operate and grow flower. You know, as much as they are classified as a Canadian company, he lives, I think he's down in Florida. So he's raising.
He's in my neck of the woods.
Yeah. Irish writes, Dan Patrick needs to go back to a sports talk show. It's quite the polarizing name, but yeah, it's the first thing I thought of. All right, sir, that's it for now. We'll have our weekly recap Sunday night. Man, that's getting close to 20,000 views a week now. That's growing. So it looks like that's a winner every single week that people like me recapping, thanks to you doing the newsletter. So it's a 1-2 punch. So I'll have that out Sunday as usual as well. I've got some interesting stories, including we're going to do a couple things related to the crypto space as well, some evergreen content. And there was some great sound bites from Vice President JD Vance at the crypto conference in Las Vegas last week. So don't sleep on crypto, man. I know you've been having some great success, but that is one industry that's poised to grow substantially, I think, under this new administration. So I've got some great takeaways from his appearance at the crypto conference in Vegas from last week and what it might mean for the overall industry in the next couple of years. So that's be going out tomorrow. And then as well, if you haven't gotten a chance, make sure to check out our channel. So I did a recap on Trulieve and GTI yesterday. As I said off the top, yes, it's for you people that are the diehards that know the space, but also as far as people trying to learn new things about the cannabis industry to expand this audience. So one last thing, I love data, as I say lately. And right now, our data is showing that only 20% of our viewers are subscribed. So if you get a chance, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We're just about to hit that 50,000 mark. So if you get a chance to consume this content, make sure to subscribe that button. We'd appreciate it here at TDR. And last thing, scan that QR code, get some takeaways from really the latest earnings from Cresco and Canopy. If you want to get those analysis and takeaways, make sure to subscribe to our Baked In newsletter delivered to your inbox weekdays, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern time. All right, my friend. That's it for today. It's 11:52. Let's call it a day. And everybody enjoy the rest of your day and weekend. And we'll see you back here Monday, 4 o'clock with Luke Mongeau, along with Michael Bronstein from Attach to get an update on what we can expect next week in PA. Enjoy your day. See you later.
See you, everybody.
So what'd you think of all that information? Some interesting stuff that we just learned once again here at the TDR Traded Black podcast. Let's keep the conversation going. So leave your comments below. We'd love to get your feedback. As usual, if you have time, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications. And stay connected with us here at the Trade to Black podcast. Thanks for watching, everyone.